The people who don't understand marijuana always make rookie mistakes. Here's some rookie mistakes with marijuana. Number one, not knowing that there's a difference between the two major types that really have a different effect. And number two, not knowing that there's a pretty big difference within each category of what strain you're getting and what kind of effects you get. Some will make you more paranoid, some will make you more creative, some wake you up, some put you to sleep. They're opposites in many ways. So if you don't know at least that much, you're just putting some mystery thing into your body that may or may not be anything like what you were hoping for. So that's one of them. The other myth is that vaping is safer. You've seen the vape things that turn the marijuana into sort of a vapor of water and THC, I guess. And it might be, it's possible that it's safer, but I would never use that as my main go-to, because unlike regular marijuana that people have been burning and smoking in the normal way for decades and decades, the vaping hasn't really been studied. And it also lacks a lot of the CBDs and the things that might be offering the protective quality of the marijuana. So people who smoke, the studies on it have shown that they have the same mortality as people who don't smoke marijuana, that is, not cigarettes, just marijuana. Same mortality rate as everybody else, but they might actually have stronger lung function. And I think that's a study that needs to be replicated. But apparently there are studies that show people who are chronic marijuana smokers have better lung function. So if you're vaping because you think it's safer, it might be, but you're not on the side of science, you're just guessing. If you want to be using the thing which has been studied the most and consistently shown to have little or no issues beyond the ones that you know about, then smoking is probably safer. And then the last thing that's the biggest mistake people make is they say to themselves, well, I don't know about all this smoking because I don't know how to do it, or I don't want to get that high, or I don't want to smell like smoke, whatever reasons. And they say, I think I'll play it safe and I'll just get an edible. I'll eat a brownie or something. Those people make up, I'm just guessing, but probably 90% of all the bad things you've ever heard about people under the influence of marijuana, probably 90% are from edibles. And it's always the same reason, that you can't tell your dose. You don't know how much you're getting, and because it kicks in slowly, you start chewing on the brownie, and because you're not smart, and by the way, I would fall into this category as well. It doesn't matter how smart you are, people make the same mistake. They would eat it and they'd say, I don't really feel that different. I was hoping to feel different, so I'll eat another brownie. And they're like, feel a little bit, spend 45 minutes. Yeah, I can feel a little bit, but I was hoping for more. I'll have a third brownie. And that's when you start taking your clothes off and driving on the wrong side of the road. So, don't do edibles. Even if you only do one, you don't know how much is in there unless you made it yourself and you're used to making it. And you know what type of weed is in there, and edibles are just bad business. Stay away from them. Tell us why hypnotics are bad. Hypnotics is a class of pharmaceuticals like Ambien that put you into sleep, basically. So it just closes down your mind and puts you to sleep. Now, the only reason I say that's bad is not based on science, because I'm not aware of all the science, but the fact that anything that makes your brain shut down, if it's not happening before major surgery, I just have questions whether that could ever be a good thing. The volcano is another form of vaping that I would also not assume is safe. Because again, there have been, those things are newer, so there have been fewer kinds of tests. People addicted to Ambien? Somebody said, am I productive when high? Well, I wrote my last 2 books while I was pretty high. They came out okay. So let me give you a more responsible answer to that. My experience has been that the right marijuana will make people more of what they already are. So if you're already creative and you have the right strain of marijuana, and it's the right minute after you've done it, because you can't wait too long, you don't want to do it right away, there's sort of a sweet spot in there, they can make you more creative. I would say that at least, I'd say 75% of the topics that you see me do on Periscope, I at least conceived of under the influence. And it's things that I would not have conceived of under ordinary circumstances. So if you ask me, does it make you more creative? I would say there's a very big depends. You would first of all probably have to be a chronic user, because if it was the first time you used it, you wouldn't be able to operate the same way. So you'd have to be a chronic user, and since I don't recommend anybody be a chronic user unless you have legitimate medical uses, I can't recommend it. And next, you'd have to take the right strain, because if you don't get the right strain, you don't get the creative feeling. You just get tired or paranoid or something else. And you have to have the right kind of job where it makes sense. My job, the hardest part of my job is coming up with a new way to look at things. So in my specific case, I check all the boxes. So I do know what strain to use. I am a chronic meaning daily user. I do use it for medical purposes, so I would be using it anyway. I wouldn't recommend you do it just to be creative, but since I'm using it anyway, it's just a bonus. And yeah, that's the main thing. I check all the boxes, but most people would not. Somebody says Thomas Jefferson smoked weed. I once tried to look that up, and I think that is not confirmed. I believe that the idea that the founders smoked weed comes from the fact that at least George Washington, maybe others, they grew hemp as a crop, but I don't believe it was the THC type of hemp. I think it was a variant that is just good for making fabrics and stuff. Somebody says, why not use to be more creative by itself? Let me clarify what I said. I'm not a doctor, so I would never recommend that anybody use marijuana. It doesn't matter what you said you wanted to use it for. My answer is the same. Am I a doctor yet? No. Is marijuana a medicinal thing? Yes. So cartoonists should not be giving you medical advice. So independent of whether or not it would be good to use it for your creativity, I would not recommend it because I'm not a doctor. John Cox thinks marijuana users should be hospitalized. Really? Did John Cox say anything about dispensaries? Yeah, that doesn't sound like it's true. How does it help me medically? In so many ways, it's hard to even list them all. But it's good for sleep apnea. It eliminates my allergies like no other pharmaceutical does, and it does it immediately. So it clears up my head. I can breathe better. It's an anti-inflammatory, so I can exercise far more efficiently. It's not an accident. I'm trying to say this next thing without being a giant douchebag, but I'm hoping that most of you know me well enough that I'm gonna power through this. So the next thing I'm going to say is very douchey, but in order to make my point, I don't know how to get there any other way. I'm 60 years old, and I'm in phenomenal shape for my age. Now I don't mean phenomenal like the people who run Ironman. I mean for just a guy who is not a Ironman athlete or something, I'm in ridiculously good shape. And I would say that a huge part of that is medicinal marijuana. Now, I don't take it for that purpose, but because it's an anti-inflammatory, I can work out, I don't get sore, it makes me want to work out the next day, it makes me enjoy it, so I enjoy it, etc. Somebody says, you look old for your age. Well, I make no claims about my face, which is the part you get to see. There's no bragging about my face. From about here up, this is all bad news, all right? So I would love to be more narcissistic and say, you know, this is pretty good, but, you know, I live in the real world. However, from here down, just in terms of fitness, etc., I'm pretty good shape. All right. It lowers testosterone levels. I think temporarily it does that.